There's only one time where Tony Pollard averaged more than 11 fantasy points in a single game last year. And I put context on this by saying that this is standard for out there. If you go to PPR, well, his numbers are different. He had a first game against the Chargers in week 2. You remember that contest? That's when the Tony Pollard buzz was going absolutely ballistic. He had 13 carries, 109 yards, a touchdown on the ground. He also got involved in the passing game too. But that was the boom performance. The rest of the games, 7.5 against Philly, 6.7 against Carolina, 14.3 against New York Giants. Yeah, it's the New York Giants. And 14.3 against the New York Giants. I got to say that again. What's the rest of the stats looking like? Oh, I thought you never asked. New England, 9.3 fantasy points. Minnesota, 3.7 fantasy points. Denver, 5.3 fantasy points. Oh, he did get popping against my Dirty Birds. He did get popping with 15.8 fantasy points. But the week after against Kansas City, 9. Las Vegas, 10. Oh, he did play popping against. He has a little bone to pick with the NFC South. Against New Orleans. Against New Orleans, he had 15.4 fantasy points. 11.7 against New York Giants again. 7 and then 8.8 to round out the season. This is his stats. For the year of 2021, he had 10.4 fantasy points per game as an average. As an average. Is it still doing it? Yeah, 10.4 fantasy points per game as an average. This is what I'm looking at. And I just give you the blind resume as it is. I understand that I can take any stat and make it work for a player and make it work against a player. This is fantasy football. This is what we do. This 2021 average, if I wanted to say glass half full, it's his best output of his entire career. I can also say that he's increased his fantasy points every single year of his career. He's increased his fantasy points per game average every single year of his career. I can look at it from glass half full or glass half empty, but I present the case to you and I push back on people saying that Tony Pollard is better than Zeke Elliott. Stop it. Please stop it. Tony Pollard in his career has 366 fantasy points. 366. 366. Just to put context on it. Zeke Elliott had 366 in his first 2 seasons. Plus. Last year, 205. And guess what? That's just standard. I'm talking about PPR. That's a whole nother beast. In 2016, Ezekiel Elliott averaged 21.7 fantasy points per game in 2016. 2017, 20.3. 2018, 21.9. Then things starts to get a little chippy. And where all this noise starts getting up. 2019, 19.5. 2020, 14.9. 2021, 14.8. We have to understand what we're dealing with. We have to understand what we're dealing with, people. We're dealing with a situation where it's not this or that. It's this and that. Ezekiel Elliott was 6th in the entire league last year with touchdowns with 12. He had 1,002 rushing yards. That was 7th in the entire National Football League.
That's McGovern, and there's the fullback. Give it to Elliott. Drives it home.
7.
And for the touchdown.
7. On a bum knee.
9 offensive plays total.
And now he's fully healthy. He's going to be the focus of the running game, and Jerry Jones is going to be behind him.
And there won't be any need to review
has to
this
be the
one.
focus.
Touchdown, Cowboys.
The fact that he bounced this season, you better believe they're going to try to get both of them out there on the field because they're lacking in pass catchers. Their starting wide receiver, number 1, is CeeDee Lamb. Behind him is Michael Gallup and Jalen Tolbert. Dalton Schultz is at tight end. So let's just be honest. Outside of Zach Martin, who can you name on their offensive line? I'll let you think. But I'm going to tell you the answers. Center, Tyler Iodines. Terrence Steele, right tackle. Left tackle, Josh Ball. And left guard, Connor McGovern. Tyler Smith doesn't look to be projected as a starter right now.
I wouldn't pressure here.
All I'm saying is this. It's not this or that. It's this and that. And Vibes predicts that Ezekiel Elliott will be more explosive this season than any other season in his career. And that's including his rookie season. Ezekiel Elliott will dominate this backfield. And Tony Pollard will still be effective, getting the most fantasy points in his career this season. And he still won't be touching Ezekiel Elliott.
To the 4-yard line.
So Vibes
455 yards a day. They've got 99.
So, okay. Appreciate you. So, we get back to the show. And I'll say it again. Vibes predicts that Ezekiel Elliott will look more explosive in 2021 than any other season of his career, including his rookie season, where he got absolutely busy. And Tony Pollard will still have the most fantasy points that he's ever had in his career, and he still won't be touching Ezekiel Elliott. As far as explosion, as far as just a better running back. So two things can be true at the same time. Just like they're going to have both of those players on the field at the same time. These are the things that we have to talk about. So I gave you the blind resume, and I gave you Vibes all in one segment. That's why that segment was a little bit longer. However, this is Fantasy Vibes, where perspective matters. Perspective is king. Where you sit determines what you see, and what you see determines your outlook on the situation. We can provide the stats for you to make any player be higher or lower. If I told you that Ezekiel Elliott has as 19.5 in 2019, 14.9 in 2020, and 14.8 in 2021 as fantasy points per game, you might be like, "Oh my God, that's mid." That's mid. Until I bring out the stats from 2016, 17, and 18. Or the fact that 4 out of his first 4 years, he had 325 fantasy points, 329, 311. Even last year in a down year with the messed up PCL, his knee, 252. This is why perspective matters. Coming up next. Yeah. Yeah, we're working this out on the fly, so I appreciate y'all being patient for this. This is my first show doing through OBS, so y'all getting way more content through this. We're doing our other shows in another broadcasting app, so shout out to them. I'm not gonna say their name just yet, but shout out to them. But yes, man, this is Fantasy Vibes, September the 5th, 2022. Happy Labor Day to everybody that's out there. And we're going to get you covered. NFL season is right around the corner. The first game is in 3 days. And you don't want to miss it. We got the Rams taking on the Bills first week. Who you have in that game, drop it in the chat. Let me know who you're taking in the game. And while you do that, it's time for a special segment that I like to call Mo's Mailbag, where we answer questions from the audience. So if you have a question from me that you want me to answer for fantasy related, drop it in the chat and I'll answer it on the fly. And again, this is sponsored by Real Ones Productions. Don't want to miss it. Sponsored by R1P. Coming up first on Moon's mailbag. Moon, who do you start? Dak or Russell Wilson week 1? Who do you start? That's a great question. I'll say if you have both of them as your starter quarterback, then you're blessed this season. You're definitely blessed. I look back to last year when Dak ended up playing the Cowboys versus the Bucks in that game, and we don't even want to talk about that Godwin play at the very end of the game that ended up winning it for the Bucks. Y'all remember that play? Yeah, I wish I had the video so I can show you the replay of it, but that game was tight all the way through. It was high offense. I just don't think the Cowboys have the same weapons, and that is the loss of Amari Cooper is going to show out for last week. Now, I know there's people out there that's like, yo, Amari Cooper, we don't want to talk about him. You can't deny how special he is as a route runner, though. And you can't deny how he has to be accounted for as a defense. Is CD Lamb going to be that number 1 wide receiver this year? That's what I'm asking myself. And I want to say yes. And I'm not going to make any crazy bold takes or anything like that. I'm going to stay even keel, shoot straight. But when I look at the fact that the Buccaneers defense, you know, they can have some hiccups begin the season too. Everything isn't all peachy around those parts either. I say, oh, how much is Dak going to really throw the ball in that game? How much? Is it going to be over 40 pass attempts? Could be if they get behind game script, things of that nature. These are things that we got to add into the equation that we got to talk about. And then we flipped it on his head and you say, okay, what about Rush? Rush is going back to Seattle. He has to take on his former team. It's going to be an interesting atmosphere to say the least. And then you add in the weapons, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Albert O, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, better offensive line. Seahawks defense looks what it is. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I am going to start Russell Wilson week 1 over Dak Prescott. And I'll be confident in it just knowing that Seattle's defense is, what are you talking about? No Bobby Wagner, no Earl Thomas not coming back to save them boys. They just lost their top corner to free agency not that long ago. Like, when you look at their team as a whole, I see a bunch of question marks on Seattle's defense, and I see a bunch of ways and opportunities for the pass catchers for Russell Wilson to get busy. And I see Russell Wilson being able to use his legs to extend plays and maybe even get you a rushing touchdown. It's not saying both of them are bad plays. I'll just say Rush is playing the easier defense. So give me Rush in that situation. Any other questions? Put them in the chat. Go ahead. Hey, Moon. Gus Edwards or Brian Robinson as a deep stash for mid-season? This is a great one. Shout out. I'm going with Brian Robinson as a late stash for me. We saw with Washington before everything. Prayers to Brian Robinson, and I'm praying for his health and hope he gets back soon so he can come in and take Antonio Gibson's job. At least that's what people think. I would say Brian Robinson. Both of them would be the number 2 running back in the situations, with J.K. Dobbins being number 1 and then Gus Edwards being number 2. Kenyon Drake, last time I checked, he was just visiting. I don't know if he actually signed with Baltimore yet. Someone had to fact check me on that because news is just happening like crazy in the NFL right now. I would say both of them are RB2s, but who has the potential to be an RB1? I would say definitely Brian Robinson. And to me, that's not even really tough. I understand I love Gus Bus, but Gus Bus doesn't present the PPR upside that I would want. And I think Gibson does in this offense. And you just see the trust factor. Just look at what your eyes told you. Your eyes told you that they were heavily involving Brian Robinson and as a 3-down running back. And I'm not supposed to just go off of what I just saw and just totally just ignore it of what I just saw and just take it and just throw it out of the window. So I'm taking Brian Robinson right there as a deeper stash for the midseason. You're going to have to be patient and monitor and watch everything that's going on with his recovery. But, yeah, I'm taking Brian Robinson over Gus Bus. Last question from the audience. that's out there. Henry, Derek, that is, Dalvin Cook, or Justin Jefferson at 1.04 in a PPR league. Justin Jefferson, because he has a high chance to get the triple crown. This offense seems to be going through him. I'm not sleeping on Dalvin Cook at all. Like, I really do feel like he's a first-round running back that people need to be drafting. I see him go in the second round a couple of different times, and not just in 2 quarterback leagues. I'm talking about all the way. People have been sleeping on him, and I'm not going to be one of those. I just think Minnesota's offense as a whole is going to be great this year. If they disappoint me on a week-to-week basis from, like, who do you start, I think everybody's going to be startable on a week-to-week basis. But I feel like they can disappoint me a little bit just with, like, being in a new system, just the kinks and everything, and then you got to play in your division and all of that. Like, it's not going to be pretty at all times, and that's where the frustration may come. But I think Justin Jefferson, I've seen him go as high as 1.02 in PPR leagues. So I would take him there. And Henry, we all know what Henry can be. And you already know, remember last year when Derrick Henry played Seattle Seahawks on CBS? Well, the same thing could get busy this year on a week-to-week basis. And Derrick Henry led all the fantasy players with fantasy points per game last year. So it wouldn't be by a wide margin at all. But my personal favorite, I would take Justin Jefferson. Having an elite wide receiver in that range, especially last year, we saw it all. Like, having an elite wide receiver that can have high upside as far as touchdowns and yards. They don't just grow on trees, and I would take Jefferson at that spot. Let's go to the audience in the chat and see what their questions are. Let's see. We got a Bills. They have Khalil Shakir, and LA doesn't. He's a sleeper for this week. To get busy against the Rams. I'm actually thinking about. I'm not going to be one of those people, and I'm not an analyst. First and foremost, I'm not an analyst. I'm just like y'all. I'm choosing y'all to get creative and bring out his content. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to be one of those people to be like, oh, you need to bench Josh Allen week 1. Why? Because he playing on Thursday? No, I'm not. I refuse. You need to bench Gabe Davis. Why? Because Jalen Ramsey going to have to guard him? Oh, man, they're going to come for me, Stephon Diggs fans. Oh, man. Let's get to the questions, though. Hey, look, Amari Cooper. There goes Gilly Lock. Do the Colts have to play the Browns this year? Because that would be an interesting rematch. Hey, Craig, this is the rematch. What rookie quarterback last season makes the biggest jump in fantasy this season, preferably one that played? So no Trey Lance. The biggest jump from this season, rookie quarterbacks, Mac Jones. That's what I'm going with. I think he makes the biggest jump. And I know it's not even have anything to do with just being a Patriot. And I know the preseason happened and there was like a boneheaded play that went about, that went there. But Mac Jones, he's my honorable mention. He's my honorable mention. I'll preface that by saying it. But Mac Jones, I just think that the situation is going to call for them to be more pass heavy this year. Ramondre Stevenson is my starting running back. He can get busy on blocking. He can get busy in receiving and rushing. We already know what that is. This is not me totally dismissing Damian Harris. This is just me following reading the tea leaves, reading the writing on the wall. And Bill Belichick has been all over him. But I just think that with you adding Devontae Parker, you already having Jacoby Myers, like, the room for offense moving up. They don't have Josh McDaniels this year, so he can take a big jump. But my answer, without a shadow of a doubt, beyond just honorable mentions, Justin Fields. Justin Fields has the biggest rookie jump from this last year to this year. Bank on it. Book it. Write it down. Take it to the bank. Rush to Justin Fields. That's my answer. I will agree with you on that, even though Dak my starting quarterback. Rushing Dak on my team I drafted today. That's fire. How do you view David Bell in fantasy this season? David Bell is projected to be the wide receiver number 3 for Cleveland. I am not one to think that Cleveland is a talented roster. We have to just be honest and say that. And I know Deshaun Watson is not supposed to come back until later in the season. And people are just going to make it seem like not Jacoby Myers, but Jacoby Brissett is not an adequate quarterback that can't keep the boat afloat. Did you watch that game last year from Miami when Miami went to Las Vegas? You saw Jacoby Myers use his feet out there. We saw him be able to put the ball in some tight windows. I think that he might be an underrated play. And I'm not saying he can be quarterback 2 season long in fantasy, or I'm not even pushing quarterback 1, but I'm saying he's going to keep the boat afloat and he's going to have to target Amari Cooper and the rest of these pass catchers. I'm higher on Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I'm higher on David Bell. David Bell's wide receiver 3, but I can definitely see him being sure-handed coming in and earning more snaps. It's going to be interesting to monitor the snap percentage this year with the Cleveland wide receivers outside of Amari Cooper, that is, because we already know what Nick Chubb is. We already know what Kareem Hunt can do. We already know that this offensive line is strong, but we're going to have to, for a season long, I think everything ups and takes an uptick, and we might be talking about David Bell as a automatic start when Deshaun Watson comes back. But until then, I want to see what it looks like. I want to see, but I'm hopeful of his production moving into this year. And from an outlook perspective, he's already wide receiver number 3, so he's already on the field. That alone in itself gives him opportunity. And opportunity in fantasy, it's king. Where else are you streaming? I'm streaming on Twitter right now, and we're streaming on Twitter, and we're streaming on Twitch right now. If it was a top wide receiver in fantasy last year to fall off of a cliff this season, who would it be? Top wide receiver last year to fall off of a cliff. Let me think about that real quick. Let's see. Let me go to my stats real quick. And I'm gonna go from we want regular season. We want from week 1 all the way to week 18. Yep, week 1 to 18. And then on top of that, gotta make sure we include all teams. Make sure we include all teams. Need all positions too, but we can separate by wide receivers. Top wide receivers: Jamal Chase, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, Mike Williams, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Devontae. There's so many. Let's go to advanced metrics, and that's separated by standard scoring. The one that I would pick, and we talk about like fall off of a cliff, Mike Evans. And this is my reasoning why. He had 14 touchdowns in 2021. He had 14. That was second in the NFL. When you include Chris Godwin being healthy, when you include Julio Jones being there now, and I'm banking on a healthy Julio. I'm banking on Julio not only being utilized, but involved heavily for Brady on a week-to-week basis. This is not the Antonio Brown experience. This is completely different. Julio is a professional. We understand he deals with a lot of soft tissue issues. When you add in the fact that they're coming out and saying that Leonard Fournette, they want to monitor his snap percentage, and this means increase and boost up to maybe Keyshawn Vaughn, maybe boost up to Rashad White. I just look at it. Godwin it's supposed to be healthy. He's working his way back to full health. Whether he's there for week 1 on Sunday I'm banking on yes. But in standard last year, Evans was a beast. He had 74 receptions. He had 114 targets, 1,000 yards. He's had 100,000 yards in every single season of his career. He had 14 touchdowns though. That was the highest that he's ever had in his career. So his yards per target was at 9.1 as well. And he had 188 fantasy points in standard leagues. His finish last year was at wide receiver 9. So when I say fall off of a cliff, I mean fall off of wide receiver 1 territory and maybe wide receiver 2, mid wide receiver 2. So like in the 20-ish range, maybe even lower. I say low end wide receiver 2. And I just say because he has more around him like this year. And it's going to be more competition for targets this year. And when you talk about his injury history and how he's constantly had to deal with hamstrings, and since we've been in camp and everything, you add in Russell Gage as well, Cameron Brate. I think that Mike Evans will be a good candidate to fall off. From his PPR numbers are better than his standard numbers for sure. He had 262 points in fantasy last year. So yes, 14 touchdowns. I'm not banking on it. I'm not banking on it this year. And the catches, his catches wasn't like insane, over 100 catches and things of that nature, but he did have over 100 targets. And I say that comes back down just because you don't sign Julio for no reason. You don't have number 2 in the league with touchdowns without having some type of regression. And I just look at everything else around it. Does he get 1,000 yards in the season? I'm going to go on a limb and say no, he doesn't. I don't. Any more questions we have in this segment of Moon's Mailbag? Let's see. Am I crazy to think it won't be as high scoring in fantasy this season compared to last season due to Matt Ryan being in Indy with JT? No, you're not crazy to think that. And I've been trying to prepare people from this. It's the same conversation we have to have with some other teams out there. For example, who's a perfect case study? The Denver Broncos. People are telling me that Cortland Sutton is going to finish as a wide receiver 1 this year. That means 1 through 12 in fantasy. They also banking on Jerry Jeudy to finish as a wide receiver 1, 2 in this season. And I push back on that and say, well, if they finish as a wide receiver 1 or 2, then what is Javonte Williams finishing as? Because they seem to be like Javonte is going to be the guy. I understand Melvin Gordon is going to be there. Yeah. But when he's on the field, Javonte is a dog. We understand that. He is a bowling ball that is hard to tackle. Last time I checked, Melvin Gordon don't got that type of juice in his knees. That's a fact. Still a good ball player, but he's not dragging defenders and just steamrolling people. Like, I'm talking, put your head down and that's not Melvin at this stage in his career. So I say, like, what is the addition of Russ, veteran quarterback, changing places, new face? Like, can two things be true at the same time? Like, their offense be so explosive in the AFC West where it supports Cortland Sutton being a top fantasy wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy being a top fantasy wide receiver, Albert O being a top tight end, and Javonte Williams finishing top 12 too? Then Nathaniel Hackett, he probably going to get coach of the year then, if that's the case. But I use that as preface to say, I think that Michael Pittman is going to frustrate some fantasy owners this year. And I think Jonathan Taylor is going to frustrate some fantasy owners this year with Matt Ryan being there, because Matt Ryan is going to spread the ball around so much. They've already been talking about Nyheim Hines and how they want him to be more active. It's no different than Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines situation is no different than Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. It's the same thing if you really look at it. Two stud running backs. You can argue whether JT is just high and beyond Zeke or whatever, but two stud running backs in their system with players that's behind them, RB2s that's behind them, that are pushing for more snap percentage, pushing for higher utilization in their offense, pushing for more workload. Frank Wright was saying this last year, and we was frustrated with Frank Wright last year for the same thing. Like, bro, what are you doing? Why you got this man? We know Nyheim Hines is good. And then in the spurts, we couldn't really say much because Nyheim Hines was balling in the times that he got in. But they're utilizing him more? You're not crazy to think that. I just don't view him as a number 1.01 pick like a lot of people. And I feel the same way. And I'll die on that cliff. I'm not debating how talented JT is. I'm just debating that last year they had to have him carry them to the finish line. Well, we can talk about how they finished and everything in another episode, but they relied on with Matt Ryan having a stability and consistency at quarterback. That solves a lot of issues. That like makes the ball be in different places, from Alec Pierce to Pittman to Paris Campbell to other these other the tight ends that they have on their roster, to the offensive line already being strong. You add in Hines, you add in Taylor. I'm sure that they understand that this, like, they go. JT is a special talent and a special athlete, a special running back. We saw that all throughout the year last year. But 1.01, it makes me have cause for pause. So I agree with you. Final question. Does Kyle Pitts have only one touchdown last season scare you for his fantasy production this year? No. No, it doesn't scare me. It more so makes me excited, because you can't get worse than that unless you have 0 touchdowns. I actually look at it like scheming. There's the London game. The London game when we took on the Jets was the first time in the season where we got a chance to say, oh, snap, they want to use Kyle Pitts. We didn't know at the time that was going to be his only touchdown in the year. But these are things that we have to talk about. I think his ceiling is high this year. And I honestly feel this is the cheapest Kyle Pitts is going to be in his career as far as fantasy price and where he's going right now. He's going right now in the 3rd, sometimes 4th round, depending on if you're 18. I know there's people out there that play 18 leagues. I know there's people. Not that many, but there's people out there that play 18 all the way up to 16 teams. 16 is probably going like maybe 3rd, 2nd. Dynasty, that's an entirely different situation because Kyle Pitts is going in the 1st round in Dynasty. But as far as redraft, I've seen him go in the 3rd round in like about 12 teamers. 3rd round. I'm taking him in the 2nd if I can, or maybe back in the 2nd, high end 3rd. That's what I'm taking. But this is the cheapest that he's going to be, and I'm not going to bank on him only getting 1 touchdown. I would say that he's a mismatch nightmare, and it's going to be a problem just for people to be able to guard him. And that is what it is for the segment. Moon's mailbag. That was a great one. We got to do that often. Welcome to Fantasy Vibes. This is a segment that I've been waiting on. When I say waiting, I've been waiting on. I brought this segment back for this year because I really feel like people need to be aware of players that they shouldn't be touching, that should be avoiding. I have another segment called I'm Locked Up that I cannot wait to bring back this year. But this one, it's probably going to take the cake as far as being funny. So let me get in my bag. Let me get in my zone. But before I do, let me tell you this. Real Ones Productions is sponsoring this stream and every stream that we have for Fantasy Vibes. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you check us out on all our platforms. Real Ones Productions. Real Ones on Twitter. Real Ones Productions on TikTok. You don't want to miss it. We got content coming out. And if you're a fan of college football Kickoff is going to keep you covered and locked every Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m. on our YouTube at Real Ones Productions. Make sure you check it out. And come start your morning with the crew. Myself, Jalen Wilson. We have Lever KT, Hello Cool Brad, Makeup, College Football Kickoff crew. And yes, we even talk about close loss Frost in Nebraska. So you know that's good for TV. Shout out to R1P. It is time. It is time for Throw the Towel. You already know it's time. I've been waiting. But before we do, here's a live looking at the draft. We got a draft coming up. Mock 2 quarterback leagues. I'm going to help you with that in a second. But, you know, we got to keep you locked and keep you all the way covered from every angle. Because, you know, it wouldn't be fantasy if we don't got you. This guy I'm about to talk about He's been on multiple teams. And I'm not going to debate whether or not his talent, but I will debate if his time as being fantasy relevant is done. It pains me to do this, bro. After the Miami Dolphins gave Will Fuller a $10.6 million contract this past offseason, a lot of people were hyped because they're like, oh my gosh, he finally gets a chance to pretty much ball out. But then we were just thrusted back to earth when we realized that he only had 4 catches and 26 yards in his last season. That's recent. That's facts. He's battled through injuries. We always know that. Will Fuller staying healthy is kind of like the same equivalent of Josh Gordon trying to stay off of weed. Like, this in the same vicinity. And that's a joke. And I'm not going to be joking necessarily about his injury concerns because I want to see him healthy. But he's a big play wideout that didn't do anything to boost his free agency stock in 2021, and somebody is probably going to be interested in picking him up. And the question remains, who? Because we're about to start the season. This is not an Odell situation where Odell is hurt and everything, and people want to offer him, hesitant to offer him because they're like, oh, what's the timeline on Odell? With Will Fuller is different because he finds himself like it's very close to the season and he's still not on the team. There's been reports that he's been drawing interest in everything and from multiple teams, but I don't know which teams that they are. So from a fantasy perspective, just to give you context, his ADP is 330. That's undraftable. His best case scenario is 174 for 2022 outlook. His ECR or draft rank is 299. 299, ladies and gentlemen. This is coming by my first round pick by Houston and the 21st pick in the first round at the age of 28. Like I said, it pains me to do this, and I'm really, really doing it. But he's coming off the board as wide receiver, anywhere between wide receiver 64 to wide receiver 68. On Sleeper, he's number 213 right now. 213 as far as like projections on wide receiver. There's a handful of other wide receivers that I'd rather have on my team than Will Fuller. That's why. It pains me to say this, Will. But before we even start the season off, and before we even do this to get it popping, my first throw the towel of the season, it goes to you, Will. So without further ado, take it away, my guy.
Be back in a minute, all right?
Like I said, it pains me to do this, man. But Will Fuller, I'm throwing a towel on you this year, my boy. Throwing a towel. Stay tuned to keep it locked for more throw the towels as we get through the season. Players that I'm not trying to have on my fantasy team anymore. It might make a lot of sense some weeks. Some weeks it might just be out of frustration. You remember when Hollywood Brown played the Lions last year? He played the Lions last year. This man could have had like 8 touchdowns and he dropped like 10 of them. He was a perfect throw the towel candidate for that week. So it'll be like that. But I'm interested not only to give you that segment, but to see the reaction from the audience and stuff out there. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, they had so much. Will Fuller and D-Hop had amazing potential to be, and it's crazy that both of them not even in Houston anymore. Crazy. Also, it's time to get into the last part of the show, and which I've probably been waiting for, and I'm gonna do it. Let's go to Sleeper. Shout out to Sleeper. Y'all help me so much. And I'm not going to be petty today and talk about how y'all don't want to respond back to my messages on Twitter. Y'all trying to act like y'all don't follow me, even though I'll be showing y'all all kind of love. And y'all know how many people I brought to the fantasy platform. That's the best fantasy platform that they can have and ever created. And I've brought so many customers to you. Sleeper. Thank you for sponsoring this segment. We got a 2 quarterback draft, 12 team, snake, 17 rounds. And I am picking from the 111 spot. If you are in a 2 quarterback league this year, I'm here to tell you that you can probably wait on quarterbacks and still get a sleeper or a couple of sleepers that have high upside. You don't want to wait too long, but I'm going to show you what my strategy is as I start the draft. And let's get it popping. Yes, I want to start the draft. First team 1 took Herbert. Team 2 took Allen. 3, Taylor. Mahomes. Jackson at 5. Eckler at 6. McCaffrey at 7. Kupp at 8. Burrow 9. Justin Jefferson at 10. So that leaves me to look. You got Kyler Murray, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris. There's a lot of cases for a lot of them. Jamar Chase, Dalvin Cook, Travis Kelce, and Jalen Hurts is right there. We can wait as much as we want to, but this is a strategy that I'm going to do for you where I'm going to take players. Since look at our roster first, so we know what we have to deal with. Our roster is 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 flexes. 4. So we can really get creative. Let's try to fill out our team in the best way. So I'm gonna go with Derrick Henry first. Dalvin Cook ended up going off the board. Then I'm going to take Najee Harris second. So I know I passed on quarterback. I know, but you see them coming off the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the first round. There was, we gotta wait, 3 that went in the second round. So after the first round, it's like a little drop off. 3. I did 3rd round reversal, so we got the pick again right there, and I still was able to get either Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, like Aaron Rodgers is there. We still got some other players, but let's keep attacking. I'm gonna show you a different strategy. You got the running backs positions filled yet? No. All right, cool. So let's take Alvin Kamara, and I want to show you something. Alvin Kamara. So you got Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Alvin Kamara. Wow, Alvin Kamara will be in my flex. So I gotta wait a little bit for me to get my next ones. And they're coming right back around to me. Only 1 quarterback went in the 3rd round. The first quarterback just went off the board in the 4th round. And I'm back on the clock, and I still got Trey Lance, and I still got Aaron Rodgers, and I still got Russell Wilson there. Wow, look at that. I'm gonna take Trey Lance first. Aaron Rodgers went directly after, so that was 3 running backs and 1 in. Then I'm going to take Russell Wilson. So I waited on quarterbacks, ended up getting so yeah. So with this, we can easily have him as a flex. Normally, it would be the super flex with the quarterback right here. It will be in my lineup at that space, but I don't know why Sleeper didn't do it. But as you can see, this is a 2 quarterback league. You see all the quarterbacks coming off the board. Running backs to see who is still there. Damian Harris is right there. Penny is there. You got Stevenson there. So I'm still looking good for my flexes. But hey, you want to attack wide receiver or tight ends right here. The wide receivers that I want is looking good, and I'm gonna go Allen Robinson first as we get into the curve, and then I'm also gonna go Amon-Ra St. Brown is my receiver number 2. So I got A-Rob and St. Brown is 2. Then we got tight ends still coming off the board, and I still have a number of wide receivers that I can still take. A number of ones that I'm interested in for this season, and they're still there. So the draft is still, making its way down to me. And as you can see, the quarterbacks stopped going and 2 quarterbacks. They stopped going off of the board. There was no quarterbacks in round 6, no quarterbacks in round 7, none in round 8. And now we back here and the wide receivers and running backs seem to be coming off the board aplenty. This is where you got to get your guy. You got to get your guy and get your guy and get your guy fast. And one of my guys heading into the season, since I already got Trey Lance, I'm going to pair him with Brandon Ayuk. Let's see what that looks like. To snipe my other guy that I know is going to be heavy in there. He's sitting right there. Ramondre Stevenson, 1. He's going to be in the 9th round, pick 9-2. So 3 wide receivers, 4 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and we still have 1 flex. So I don't know why they didn't update my roster's position. I think it's like it's bugging on me, but I still need to get tight end, and this is where we can snipe. Or I can just be a pain in the rest of my league, make sides, right? You want to be a pain? You want to be a pain? Snipe Dameon Pierce right here. That's how you be a pain, Moon. That would be crazy. But I like my guy Cole Kmet, so I'm going to take Cole Kmet. But this is what I need you to see, and this is what's happening right now. Jameis Winston, Brian Tannehill, Mac Jones, Matt Ryan, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, for some reason, all went in the 9th round. The 9th. So when I tell you, you don't necessarily have to draft a quarterback unless you want to get one of the top ones in the 1st round. You don't have to. It's not a necessary, it's not a mandatory thing for you to draft a quarterback in the early rounds. You can literally build your roster in any way you want to. And I still feel like I got great values at wide receiver too. Albert O is still sitting there, and I need a tight end. Who else did I already take one? Oh, I took Cole Kmet, so I got my tight end one right there. Albert O is still there. He'll probably be there after the turn, but wide receiver is there, and I want to strike heavy. I like Sky Moore really a lot. But George Pickens is still there. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a sleeper this year, as well as Russell Gage. And I say MVS should be a sleeper just because the offense is the best one that he's played in, as far as the system based. And Sky Moore is in there, as well as Juju. But why pay for Juju when you can get Sky Moore or MVS later? He's there. Also, I'm just gonna go with my gut. My gut tells me Tony, and Kadarius Toney is gonna be my 4th wide receiver. So I got 2 wide receivers kind of in the same mode with Ayuk and Tony. Allen Robinson, who's wide receiver number 2 in the offense for the Rams, but it's a high scoring offense. At least what we project. And then St. Brown, I like my wide receiver core. That's 4 of them. Got 4 running backs as well. Did Dameon Pierce come off the board yet? Dameon Pierce come off the board? Did Dameon Pierce come off the board? Did Dameon Pierce come off the board? He did, right behind me. So right when I was thinking about taking him, that's when he came off the board. So, hey, we right there in sync with it. Rondale Moore is there. He's somebody I'm looking at, so he's going to be who I take in this situation. And we still got Julio. Julio is at 152. Devontae Parker. Jahan Dotson is another wide receiver that is going to be talked about more. And if he's on your waiver wire, go pick him up expeditiously. He is the wide receiver 2 in this offense. He's right behind Scary Terry, the wide receiver number 2. You also got Tolbert down here, Alec Pierce, KJ Osborne is a serious sleeper, as well as Josh Palmer. These are all great value wide receivers that you can have on your team, and that's going to get you points on a week-to-week basis. That's not even including Nico Collins or Sammy Watkins, who's really a sleeper. Josh Palmer as well. So it's so many different plays that you can have in this situation. You just want to attack the guys that you want to get for your team. I want to take another quarterback, because if you have 2 quarterbacks in the league, you definitely want to get 3 or try to get 3 as much as possible. But who's here that's there for the taking? Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz, Davis Mills, Marcus Mariota. I can wait around and probably get Marcus Mariota. His points projection is at 249. I don't really get caught up on points projections in this, but what you want to look at is how, I'm looking at how far they are falling. These are starting quarterbacks: Mariota, Mills, Wentz, Wilson, Mayfield, Jones. All of these are starting quarterbacks, and they're still not off the board, and we're in round 13. 13. Since I took another wide receiver, let's take a running back. And Tyler Algier is there, but I'm not really buying the Tyler Algier hype right now. And I'm a Falcons fan. If I want to add a deep league play on my roster, this is where I would take Brian Robinson, what we talked about earlier. But Khalil Herbert is, to me, he's my guy. So we gotta take your guys, no matter what. Take your guys. So we just talked about Tyler Algier. He went off the board right behind Herbert. Julio went in the 13th round. Jahan Dotson went in the 13th round. As other notable names, Jacoby Myers, 14th round. This is when teams are starting to get their defenses, and I'm going to go against the grain. This is where I'm going to get my third quarterback. And if he's there, I'm taking him. He's there. And do you need to force that, Moon? You don't. You can wait. Where's kickers looking like? Justin Tucker, no kicker's been taken yet. And he probably waits to the next round. Could stack up on tight ends because you want to get a tight end. And this is where sleeper. I'm going to take Austin Hooper in Tennessee as my sleeper tight end. I got Cole Kmet and Austin Hooper. Isaiah Pacheco and Raheem Mostert went off the board after the Hooper pick. And we got other action coming in now. Wide receivers, we got Dobbs still on the board. Nobody's touching Kenny Galladay. If you got Kenny Galladay on your roster, you need to trade him ASAP. I don't even know if he's even tradable, but you need to trade him or get not take him out your starting lineup. Yeah, that's word to Rob. Potato. I'm gonna take my kicker here. I know you're supposed to wait to the end, but we make the rules. They don't. I'm gonna wait on defense probably to the end because my targets at this spot are just maybe we'll take a dart throw. And I'm thinking about streaming defenses all year, to be honest with you. Streaming defenses is not a bad strategy, as well as also streaming kickers. But if I had to pick a defense that I think that's going to have a lot of playmaking upside this year, and I'm going to pick the New Orleans Saints for that. So I got my kicker and I have my defense and my last round pick. What do we need? Oh, the third quarterback. And this is where it becomes fun. Who do you want to take? So this all these quarterbacks are still on the board. Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz, Davis Mills, Marcus Mariota. I am going to take Marcus Mariota as a home pick, but somebody that you need to consider deep league. From a daily fantasy perspective, Marcus Mariota is going to be relevant. From a deeper league perspective, Marcus Mariota is going to be relevant. If you want to grade him as like a quarterback 2, 3, then hey, I leave you to do the rankings. But what I know is that he's playing in a system that is heavy play action, is going to be able to move the pocket continuously. He's going to have upside as far as rushing that I think Daniel Jones doesn't have. Well, he's probably the closest on the board that's having. Carson Wentz doesn't have that. Baker Mayfield doesn't have that. Who else was on the board at that spot? We don't. I can't see it. But just to take a look, he has a lot of upside as far as rushing. So he fits the mold of the quarterbacks that I already have on my roster with Trey Lance and Russell Wilson. But if we do two quarterback, I know it's not there. So we just got to swap out and imagine that Kadarius Toney is out in this play right here, and Russell Wilson is the quarterback. So it'll be Russell Wilson, Ramadre, Brandon Ayuk, Alvin Kamara, Cole Kmet, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We also have Allen Robinson, Najee Harris, Derrick Henry, and then my starting quarterback would be Trey Lance. I could have easily took Aaron Rodgers to have the veteran presence because he's going to finish high in fantasy. But I wanted to take boom upside and take the boom upside play with Trey Lance, which I don't blame anybody. I got him in the 4th round, pick 11. So this is to show you that the strategy for having two quarterbacks, you can approach it in many ways. Like you can look at the numbers, like just to see what it looked like. We had a run of no quarterbacks taken off the board in round 8, 7, 6, and there was only one in round 5. And if I didn't take Russell Wilson, I doubt that he would have probably been taken until like maybe the 6th or 7th round, depending on how everything shook out. But the facts suggest that Jameis, Tannehill, Mac Jones, Matt Ryan, Justin Fields, Lawrence, Tua, Cousins, and Carr all went in round 9. Jared Goff and Deshaun Watson, 11th. But other than that, there wasn't any other quarterback taken besides myself that got a quarterback right here with Marcus Mariota in the 17th round after I got my kicker and my defense. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat. If you look at it from this perspective, this team right here, I know it's a CPU team, but it took Lamar Jackson, Swift, Williams, Breece Hall, Robinson, and then filled up with value wide receivers with Cooks, Renfro, Lockett, Boyd, and Gallup. And also added Isaiah McKenzie as well. Only 2 quarterbacks on their roster. Now, I understand. There's people who be like, Moon, why would you take 3 quarterbacks? Well, if Marcus Mariota, let's say something goes wrong with them, I can always cut him and add another player on my roster. Let's just be honest. If I need to interchange defenses, he can be a space where I cut. If he does boom, he's a trade value piece. I look at my roster in that way. How can I maximize on capital? How can I take capital to the next level? And Trey Lance is going to be a high trade asset over the course of this year. Let's say Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, and Najee Harris go crazy. Let's say if I want to protect myself, right? I protect myself. Let's say Najee Harris is ruled out week 3 with this Liz Frank injury. I still got Alvin Kamara as my starter. I still got Ramondre Stevenson that can pop up. And even if I need to, just throw a flex in there, and then, hey, maybe I can do Herbert. But kill my wide receivers, I could have been more aggressive at the beginning. Yes. As you can see with Team 4, they went Devontae Adams, Allen, Kittle, Williams, Judy, Davis, Landry. Freaking love that receiver core. Even the stack of Allen and Williams. Let's say Justin Herbert balls out like crazy this year, then that only expands the amount of upside that Allen and Williams have. And we've already seen it so far in preseason. We see other builds out here where they want a running back first, like JT. JT first, then get Dak in the second round. Got Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, Sutton, then Josh Jacobson. They went heavy RB. So I said, I'm not going to go that heavy of RB, but I want to be able to hit some stacks in there. And I saw the 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers, three wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks for myself. For those that did take a wide receiver in the draft, they switched it up. A lot of diversity. Cooper Kupp, Mixon, Andrews, Stafford. Stafford makes me a little bit nervous this year. I'm not going to lie to y'all because of this whole elbow thing. And they say it's going to be a problem all year long, but I'm not like, hey, you gotta manage it. And that's why you need to be looking at John Walford. I'm just saying. Somebody got to tell you. But you add in Cooper Kupp, McLaurin, Mooney, Hopkins, Wilson. He can easily put Dotson in where Hopkins is until Hopkins gets back, or put Wilson in there. You got tight end with Gesicki, who's underrated. Could finish as a top 12 tight end in the league. I expect him to with this offense. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's no one way, but I showed you a way that I would do it for a 2 quarterback league where you can wait and still get your guys. Now, I know if this was people in the actual draft with me, then some of these positions would be different. And maybe I wouldn't be able to wait so long to get a Trey Lance. Maybe he would go higher in the 3rd round, or Russell Wilson will be higher in the maybe the 4th or the 3rd round. Aaron Rodgers would probably be lower because, people have their perception, Aaron Rodgers and Brady, they're the old guys, but they still busy in fantasy. Brady had 5,000 yards last year. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know when the last time he threw an interception, but like he's as efficient as it comes. So I say all of that to say that I can wait on quarterback until the 4th round and still get high quality running backs, and then be able to fill in the gaps for the rest of my team, and then still have sleeper plays, courtesy of sleeper. So that is the draft 2 quarterback, and there you look at the final looks of it. I'll go back to the chat. Michael Pittman going in the 1st and Justin Tucker going in the 2nd for me. Well, I'm going to pick 3 quarterbacks in a row, or maybe I take 2 tight ends in a row, maybe 3 depending on it. I mean, if you got the flex positions, I think tight ends are just valuable in the flex. I had people get totally upset at me in a draft that I did where I took Travis Kelce. I was at the turn, and somehow Travis Kelce fell to me, and I took Travis Kelce at like 212, and then I took Kyle Pitts at 3-1. This wasn't any 3rd round reversals, so they just threw everything down for me, and I was like, hey, tight ends are premium. Not only scoring and everything, just but there's only so many that's going to finish at above everybody else. Kelsey, I'm not banking on a fall off. And Kittle and Pitts, there's only other way. There's only one way to go besides up, and it's down. But I don't see that happening. That is a fantasy drive brought to you by Sleeper. Let's see. We come to the end of another segment and the end of another show. And we want to tell you that none of this will be possible without Real Ones Productions. Thank y'all for tuning in to this segment today. In this show, we want to appreciate you, wish you the best in your fantasy football season this year. And not only that, but we want to take our time to show love to the people that's out there watching on Twitter, watching on Twitch, and the other various platforms. Try to get this episode out to Spotify so that people can have it. And we're going to do our best to continue to give y'all content on a daily basis that y'all can soak up, and we can become a trusted and reliable source for you as you go throughout your fantasy football season. We know fantasy is a game about a game. So make sure you have fun through this whole process. It doesn't matter about these drafts and everything. Like, we're going to be wrong on some players. We're going to be right on some. Some are just going to totally blindside us, and we're not going to know where they came from. Some are going to be going right now. There's wide receiver 2s just getting drafted right now that might just end up being putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. Think of Brandon Ayuk. Think of Tyler Lockett. Think Christian Kirk. Think these receivers is getting lower. You know, like, anything can happen in fantasy on a year-to-year basis, and I just say that I'm excited to be the guy that's helping you through it all. And through fantasy vibes, we understand that perspective matters, because where you sit determines what you see, and what you see determines your outlook on the situation. But deeper than that, we want to challenge you to think for yourself. We want to challenge you to go against consensus. We want to challenge you to not only, dare to be different, but, leave your mark. Don't always go off of what consensus is or what ADP is and everything. I say fade ADP, fade consensus. Sometimes consensus is good, but you want to think for yourself. That's the only way you can be legendary and be against the grain, because everything can't work one way in fantasy. I'll just give you an example. Last year, Patrick Mahomes was dynasty quarterback number 1.01, and there was no question at all. Now this year, people are predicting a fall off. You see how fast things change? You got to move and be ahead of the wave. So that's what you're going to expect from Fantasy Vibes. This week, we're going to be giving you content galore, so you don't want to miss it. I'm going to be live, try to be live every single day, and have content coming at you in a fever pitch. This week, it all begins. NFL season is here, so make sure you soak it up and do your best to stay sane through it all. Whether it's therapy, watching the intricate parts of the game, whatever it is that you do it for. Hope you enjoy it this weekend and soak it up. And for another episode of Fantasy Vibes in the books, thank you to R1P. Thank you to you for your time. And I am Deshaun from MoonVibes, and I'm signing out. And I wish y'all all the best on this Labor Day. Enjoy it all, soak it up to the fullest, and I will see you soon. Like I always say, stay wavy, my friend.